Hey guys, Arjun here. I started getting more interested in robotics and robotics projects, and I realized that most of these robots have a single board computer that can be programmed for specific purposes. And I did a little bit of dig up on this, and I found that there are mainly two popular brands called Raspberry Pi and Arduino. And both of these are very good and used for many robotics projects. And in this video, I'm going to explain to you what are the differences between these two and why would you pick one over the other? So let's get right into it. So I'm here on the Raspberry Pi website, and I guess one of the first main questions that somebody may have when first looking at the Raspberry Pi and the Arduino is what are they? Like, what is the Raspberry Pi? Well, Raspberry Pi is basically a microprocessor, while the Arduino is a microcontroller. And they might sound the same, but they're actually very much different. A microcontroller, or the Arduino, is a CPU that has all of the external peripherals embedded into it. So let's say the RAM, the storage, all of that is embedded into the actual processor. Whereas on the Raspberry Pi, all of these peripherals are externally connected. And in order to do this, the Raspberry Pi's processor has to be a very strong in order to command all of these to work together. And this is just one of a few things that the Raspberry Pi does better. Other than how powerful the Raspberry Pi actually is, what else does it actually have to offer? Well, one thing most definitely is the amount of RAM. It has a huge amount of RAM, up to 8 gigabytes in the Raspberry Pi 4. And this can go anywhere from 1 gigabytes to 8 gigabytes. And on the Arduino side, actually, they only support up to 32 kilobytes of flash memory and 2 kilobytes of SRAM, which is a huge difference when comparing the Arduino and the Raspberry Pi. One of the next most important things is what language does each support. I have started my YouTube channel in Python, and I just decided to get a Raspberry Pi because it would make more sense to do so. The Raspberry Pi supports four different languages: Python, Scratch, C, and C++. Whereas the Arduino only supports C and C++. So that's one of the main differences, and that's the reason why I actually bought the Raspberry Pi. The next important component that is useful when comparing the two is how many GPIO pins does each have. GPIO pins supply the power to whatever you have connected to the board. The Raspberry Pi has a total number of 40 pins, while the Arduino only has 20 pins. And this is a huge difference when looking at how many components you're actually going to be connecting to your board. The most important thing to look at when comparing the Raspberry Pi and the Arduino is to see what type of processor they each have. So the Raspberry Pi has a 64-bit quad-core processor. What does that mean? A quad-core processor is basically a chip that has four different sections, and these sections are called cores. And these cores read and execute the instructions that are published by the CPU. And what does 64-bit mean? 64-bit refers to how fast the microprocessor can process the data and instructions that are created by the CPU. And in this case, it can process these instructions in chunks of 64 bits. And now let's take a look at the Arduino. The Arduino has a 8-bit microcontroller, and this is a huge difference when compared to the Raspberry Pi, which has a 64-bit microprocessor. And this is why the Raspberry Pi is much more powerful, and it can complete all of its tasks much more faster than the Arduino can. And this brings me to my final point. Why would you buy the Arduino over the Raspberry Pi? Well, even though I have been saying that the Raspberry Pi is much stronger than the Arduino, that does not make the Arduino weak at all. The Arduino is best suited for beginners who want to get started into robotics. Since the Arduino has a microcontroller and not a microprocessor, it makes it well suited for simple breadboard circuits that contain LEDs, buttons, and etc. The Raspberry Pi is for individuals who want to take their skills to the next level and hook up many peripherals to the board. For example, if somebody wanted to power up a simple robot car, the Arduino would be best in this situation. It would provide enough power so it can move the robot at a satisfactory speed and complete the tasks which are needed to be performed. But let's say you wanted to hook up a camera to the board, and using this, you wanted to live stream to a public service. This is a very demanding task, in which the Raspberry Pi would be a better choice. By the way, guys, if you're wondering if there's more information about the Raspberry Pi or Arduino, you can just go to raspberrypi.com, scroll until you see Buy Raspberry Pi, and then you can just click the model that you want. And once you click More Info and then click Tech Specs, you'll see that there is a product brief, which you could then click and get all the model specifications. And on arduino.cc, just click Hardware, and then you can scroll and choose any model that you want. And once you do this, you can just scroll until you see the datasheet. And that's it. Alright guys, that's going to be it for today's video. I'll see you in the next one where I'll be talking about how the breadboard and Raspberry Pi work. See you then.